All right. So I know when it comes to clone houses, most of us kind of rely on those houses for, recreations of, current scents, discontinued scents, mainly to give us a more affordable way to experience a lot of different, niche fragrances and such. And so I feel like a lot of the sort of original creations, they can sometimes, get overshadowed by, some of the other clones or inspired fragrances from those houses. So what I did in this video was I went through my collection and just got like 10 original fragrances that are mainly from, inspired fragrance houses. All right. So let's go ahead and get the list started off here. I'm going to start the list off with a Lattafa fragrance. This was a part of their Badi Al Oud line, and this is Badi Al Oud Honor and Glory. So I know when this fragrance like first came out, it definitely got like a lot of hype at that time. A lot of people were kind of speculating what this would be. I think to that point, a lot of people were kind of expecting this to be like another clone or inspired fragrance of another fragrance, because to that point, we had like the Oud for Glory, we had the Amethyst fragrance as well, which both of those were kind of like based on Initio fragrances. I don't think, I can't remember, but I want to say this came out before the Kayali clone that came in like the red colored bottle. But anyway, this particular fragrance, this was definitely like a original creation. It didn't really seem to be like a hybrid of anything. This was definitely pretty original, and this is still a very, very nice fragrance. I can definitely be honest and say that I don't necessarily reach for this fragrance as much anymore, with everything else in my collection. But just smelling this, again here, this is still a very, very solid fragrance. So you get like a blast of pineapple when you first spray this on. It's a very kind of like bright, sweet, and like really sort of airy sort of pineapple is what I would say is what you get with this. But you do kind of get like a spicy undertone from this fragrance as well. So it kind of smells like a combination of, I would say, like cinnamon and turmeric is what I kind of get from this fragrance, as far as like the spiciness goes. And then you definitely are getting some sort of sweetness from vanilla in the background as well. What I'll say is, and I definitely have said this before in previous videos, to me the way that this kind of smells, especially for like the first part of the fragrance, is like a pineapple upside down cake, infused with like vanilla and spices for the most part. So if you're familiar with that, dessert, I would say this kind of gives me like that type of vibe, when I smell it. Now, as the fragrance starts to dry down, it starts to become a little bit more sort of mossy and earthy, but not to the point where it's like, I would say, overbearing, or where it like makes the fragrance smell disgusting or anything like that. Like it's not really, that's not the case, at least for me anyway. I feel like this is a very enjoyable wear the entire time. Also, as you start to get into the dry down, the vanilla starts to come out a little bit more as well. I do think that this is a super like unisex fragrance. To me anyway, it doesn't seem to be like masculine or feminine leaning. It's a very kind of unisex, straight down the middle fragrance. Really good longevity. The projection, I would say, is very good for like the first probably hour and a half or so. And then it does kind of dial back a little bit, but every time that I wear this fragrance, easily 8+ hours. All right. So I definitely think that Lattafa did a very, very good job on this fragrance. I do think also, when it comes to Lattafa and their original fragrances, a lot of them do seem to be very good, a lot of times. So this was definitely one of them. And again, man, definitely check out Honor and Glory from Lattafa. All right, so the next one on the list, this is going to be one of two Swiss Arabian scents that I actually have on this list. This one is Tobacco 01 from Swiss Arabian. So Tobacco 01, this is basically, and I mean, I won't call this like a clone or anything like that because it's definitely not, but you could definitely say that there are going to be some similarities to stuff like Initial Side Effect, Dior's Tabacular, and Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille, but it never really smells like a clone of any one of those fragrances at any given time. There's just different sort of similarities that this fragrance has between those fragrances, all kind of throughout the life of the fragrance. In my opinion, while this is still definitely a very strong kind of beast mode, style tobacco scent, for me anyway, it never really becomes nearly as, I would say thick and cloying as what like Tabacular or even Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille does. This does seem to be a little bit more kind of refined, when it comes to the projection. I would say you could definitely kind of say that it does lean maybe a little bit more towards like the projection strength of something like Initial Side Effect, for sure. But it's not as like, I would say super beast mode as what something like Dior's Tabacular is. But this basically, it starts off like very kind of fruity in the opening. I want to say there's probably like plum or some other kind of like red fruit that you get in the initial opening of this. So it starts off kind of fresh and fruity, but at the same time, you are definitely getting like a nice dose of tobacco. And I would say definitely some spiciness as well is what you get from this when you first spray it on. So, it definitely, it does have a familiar sort of opening that, you would expect from like a tobacco type of scent for sure. But I think the way that, Swiss Arabian did this fragrance, even though again, it does smell very similar to some of the other tobacco scents that are out there on the market, this is still a very, very high quality scent. It still smells very kind of upscale. I would say this is not necessarily the most casual tobacco scent in the world. I still wear it casually sometimes, but this does still, like I said, have like a sort of upscale type of smell to it. So I think, probably you would most likely want to wear this when you're a little bit dressed up. Maybe not all the way like in a suit and tie or anything like that, but I mean, I think this would definitely lend itself to being, best worn when you're a little bit more dressed up. Definitely think that this is super unisex as well. So this is definitely, for a man or a woman. Obviously, if you're a woman, you do have to kind of like tobacco style scents. But, all of those scents that, I mentioned that this smells like, they're all very, in my opinion, kind of unisex style scents that I definitely see men and women wearing. So this one, like I said, it's very, very good, man. Super strong. You really don't need too many sprays, but not overly strong. That's the thing that I want to really kind of drive home with this is the strength on it is definitely noticeable. You do still want to be mindful of how many times you spray this fragrance. But, I think with this, 4 or 5 sprays would probably be, more than enough. It's not going to be where like if you spray that much sprays, you're going to be getting like a headache or anything like that. That's definitely something that I've noticed with like Dior's Tabacular or even with Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. Those are really, really potent, super beast mode, super strong projecting scents. And this one is, like I said, it's just dialed back just a little bit, man. So I would say if you like, spicy tobacco, honey, slightly, I guess you could say kind of like leathery types of scents, slightly smoky as well, just that kind of slightly mature tobacco grown up style scent, then I would absolutely recommend Tobacco 01 from Swiss Arabian. Again, as far as the performance goes on this, you know, well past 12 hours and really, really good projection for at least like the first three. All right. So check out Tobacco 01 from Swiss Arabian. All right. Another one from Swiss Arabian. This one is Shaghaf Vanilla Toffee. So Shaghaf Vanilla Toffee, while this definitely, it won't be for everybody. And I would say this is, out of all of these scents on this list, I could probably say that this is like the least versatile scent out of all of them. This is still, you know, for what it is, I think a very good, high quality, and obviously affordable, you know, scent as well. So this is very like it's super sweet. So that's the number one thing. If you're gonna rock this fragrance, you are gonna, you know, you're gonna have to be the type of person that likes sweeter scents. So this is very, very sweet. It's very buttery, very nutty. It definitely has like a spicy element to it as well. And I mean, overall, it's just a very kind of like sweet gourmand, super beast mode style scent as well, man. Like I mentioned before, the main thing really that I get from this though is it does have kind of like this buttery, nutty, kind of like salty caramel type of feel to it. Is I think the main way for me to really kind of describe how this really smells is, you know, you do get those sort of like notes and vibes, I think, are what you get the most from this fragrance. Now also too, for probably like the first 45 minutes or so, you get like this walnut note, which I wish they would have used like a different sort of, you know, nut in this particular fragrance, like maybe something like, I don't know, hazelnut or almond or something like that, that I feel like would have maybe blended a little bit better with some of the other notes in this fragrance. But you do get, you know, a very prominent and very noticeable sort of walnut note for that, like that first 45 minutes or so. And then that goes away. And then you start to get, you know, more of sort of like a buttery caramel. I would say like a buttery salted caramel type of scent. Again, mixed with vanilla, mixed with spices. Like I said, it's a very, very gourmand heavy type of scent. Man. That's the only thing that's kind of going on in this scent. So, if you're not the type of person that likes to wear, you know, scents that smell like food or anything like that, yeah, this is definitely not going to be for you. Because also, I mean, again, like that buttery sort of feel that I'm talking about, it's like super realistic in this fragrance. And I mean, you really smell that like right away when you first spray it on. Very, very buttery. And I mean, if you, like, I would say to really picture what it smells like, I would say like take like a stick of butter and throw it in a pan and heat it up and then kind of go and smell that. That's definitely like, that's a large part of what you get with this fragrance. And I mean, I would say the color of the bottle definitely kind of like represents that as well. So you do get that, like I said, you start to get like that sort of nutty walnut note as well that kind of lingers a little bit. And then after that, again, it goes into kind of like a buttery, salted caramel type of scent mixed with spices and vanilla. Really, really good, man. I would say very unique for what it is. This will kind of more so be maybe on like the feminine leaning side. And like I said, for versatility, it's not necessarily a scent that I would really see too many people wearing like all the time or like as their signature scent. I think this is more so kind of like for certain occasions or situations during certain seasons, definitely more so like during the winter for sure, like winter and fall. And I mean, while I think, you know, men can still definitely wear this fragrance, I do still think that this will more so kind of be like a fragrance more catered towards women for the most part. All right. So performance wise, this is also another beast mode fragrance, well past 12 hours of total longevity, and like really, really beast mode projection for well over 3 hours. So this is a very, very strong scent. Another one of those scents that you'll definitely want to, you know, pay attention to how many times you're spraying it. But really, really good, high quality, affordable, gourmand scent. Again, check out Swiss Arabian's Shaghaf Vanilla Toffee. All right, next one on the list, like I mentioned before, this is, I think, one of Lattafa's more super underrated scents. This one is Lattafa's Asad Bourbon. So Asad Bourbon, for me, this is a very affordable, very kind of mass appealing, you know, date night style fragrance. So, you know, it kind of gives me vibes of like Valentino's Born in Roma Intense. You know, it definitely kind of has like that vanilla, that same sort of vanilla lavender type of feel to it. Now, this is definitely not like a clone of that fragrance or anything like that, but it definitely, it does have similarities, I would say, definitely to that fragrance for sure. But yeah, man, this is definitely, it's like a sort of bourbon vanilla mixed with lavender, mixed with spices. It does have like a slightly kind of woody feel to it in the background as well. And it definitely, it has very, very good performance as well. I mean, the projection on this is like well past the arm's length for at least like the first 2.5 hours or so. And then the longevity on this, every time I wear it, I get, you know, well past, you know, 10, 12 hours or so. So this is definitely one that will, you know, definitely stick to you for sure. And I mean, for the price that you can find this for, typically, I think normally it's like around $40 or so for this 100 ml bottle. It's definitely, from what I've seen, it normally is more expensive than something like the original Asad. Now, obviously, it hasn't been out for as long as what the original Asad has been. So, you know, maybe within like the next 6 months or so, the price will definitely come down considerably on this. But I think even at that $40 price, that is still, you know, a very, very good price to pay for what you get with this fragrance for sure. And, you know, at least in my opinion anyway, so far from what I've smelled from, you know, the Asad line, this to me is definitely the best Asad fragrance that I've smelled. Obviously, I do still have the original Asad, and I do actually kind of prefer Asad over like Sauvage Elixir. But I do think that I prefer this over, you know, something like the original Asad. You know, especially for like a date night type of fragrance. Like if I had a choice to wear either this or Asad, I think probably 8 to 9 times out of 10, I would probably choose this over, you know, the original Asad. All right. So definitely, man, I would say if you haven't gotten your nose on Asad Bourbon, absolutely pick this up, man. This, like I said, is definitely going to be one of the best sort of date night style fragrances. But at the same time, this is also still a fragrance that you can kind of wear casually during the daytime as well, especially during like the fall, winter, and I would say even the spring. So again, man, check out Asad Bourbon from Lattafa. All right, next one. This one is going to be from the house of Zara. I definitely kind of consider Zara to be like a clone or inspiration house at this point, because a lot of their fragrances are definitely sort of inspired by other fragrances. Now, to my knowledge, this particular fragrance, I don't think is necessarily like an inspiration or clone of anything else. But I mean, regardless, just on its own, I think this is a very, very good fragrance. This one is BOGOSS Vibrant Leather Summer. All right. So BOGOSS Vibrant Leather Summer. This is a super dope, like fruity, I would say like a fruity kind of scent. It starts off with like pineapple and watermelon, like a mixture of those two. And I mean, the way that they come across is very good. It's very, very good. And also, this is super smooth when you first spray it on as well. Like, this doesn't have any sort of like alcohol blast to it or anything like that. This is extremely smooth when you spray it on. I would say, like, I mean, compared to like designer and niche and stuff like that, like, this is definitely, I would say, either on like the high end of designer or creeping into like niche quality when it comes to, you know, how this kind of comes across. Very smooth, very fruity, very kind of like aromatic. So it's not like the like overly sweet or like overly thick and cloying type of like sweet fruitiness. It's not like that. This is a very kind of like light aromatic type of, you know, fruitiness is what I would say. And, you know, again, the main sort of fruits that you get from this fragrance are mainly pineapple mixed with watermelon. I think maybe you could say the watermelon is probably like slightly higher in emphasis than what the pineapple is. So maybe like 60-40 watermelon is what I would say with this. But yeah, man, that's mainly what you'll get with this fragrance is like 60% watermelon, about 40% pineapple. You do kind of get some sort of like woodiness from this as well, especially like as it starts to dry down. And just, you know, overall, this is like summer in a bottle, I would say, for sure. Definitely something that, you know, I tend to reach for like on warmer days. This is definitely like a really good gym scent as well, because even though it is like a light sort of airy scent, it still projects very, very nicely. It just is not like super cloying. So that's what I really, really like about this one, man. It has good performance without being like super cloying or headache inducing or anything like that. And I mean, so far the longevity on this, each time that I've worn it has actually been like very good. So, I mean, I'm talking at least like 7+ hours, you know, for like a light, freshy, fruity type of scent. You could even say like it does kind of have a slight sort of aquatic feel to it. Like not really, but I would say it is slightly there. Like it does sort of have like a saltiness to it, especially once you get to like the dry down of the fragrance. So it's kind of like a salted watermelon mixed with pineapple, mixed with like some slight sort of woodiness as well. It's just a very well done scent. Definitely one that I feel like doesn't get, you know, any sort of hype at all, but I think it probably should. And, you know, again, this is super affordable. I believe this fragrance was like $39 from Zara. So I would say, you know, if you're looking for maybe some new affordable scents to wear maybe for next summer and you want to kind of pick them up right now, I would say if Zara still has this, I'll have a link in the description to, you know, pick it up. If they still have it, I would absolutely recommend picking it up because, I mean, you never really know with Zara. They discontinue fragrances sometimes just a couple of months after they come out. So definitely, man, again, check out BOGOSS Vibrant Leather Summer. All right, next one on the list. This is another one from Lattafa, another one of their, I would say one of their best fragrances really that they've released. This one is Teriaq Intense. So Teriaq Intense, very kind of like, very sweet, but yet at the same time sort of like fizzy and kind of aromatic style scent. So, you know, you kind of get like this sweet sort of plum liquor note in this fragrance that I think is really, you know, the main star of the show with Teriaq Intense. It does sort of have some similarities to, you know, like Lattafa's Camera, but this is nowhere near as sweet or as dense. Like I said, it's definitely a lot more kind of like fizzier and a lot more lighter than something like Camera is. But yeah, man, it has like this sort of fizzy, kind of ambery sort of sweetness to it. Definitely kind of aromatic. And this is absolutely like a compliment getting type of fragrance for sure. Um, I do think that this also has a lot more versatility than something like, you know, Lattafa's Camera does. This is something that, you know, I think if you live really anywhere other than like somewhere that's super hot, like here in Las Vegas, I think you could even wear this fragrance like at night in the summertime. So like if you live somewhere where in the summertime it's normally like in the 60s or 70s or so, then this will absolutely be like an all year round type of fragrance for you. Um, for me, this would definitely more so kind of be, I would say like fall, winter, spring here for me, and then not really at all for summer. But yeah, I think anywhere else where it's, you know, a lot more sort of moderate in temperature, this will definitely kind of be like an all year round type of fragrance. And it's going to be a fragrance that I think you can wear casually. I do kind of think you can also sort of wear this, you know, to like a more sort of upper scale event, because this doesn't smell cheap at all. And it's not like super loud and cloying. So, you know, I think the way that this wears, it definitely smells a lot more expensive than, you know, what it actually is. And I mean, it has the right amount of spiciness, has the right amount of sweetness to, you know, I think kind of make this like a straight sort of down the middle unisex style scent. Now, I think, you know, if you're a guy who just doesn't like to wear sweeter scents at all, then, you know, it probably still won't be for you. But I mean, if you can wear sweeter scents and, you know, wear those scents with no problem, then this will be for anyone, really. So again, man, I think this is one of Lattafa's best and most underrated scents that they've made. I was lucky enough to pick this one up for a really, really good price. I think it was only like $20 or $30 is what I got this for from Fragrance Shop. I haven't seen it for that cheap, you know, since then. But yeah, I was able to pick this one up for super cheap. And I mean, even if I would have paid like $40 to $50, I do still think that it's worth it, even at that price as well. Performance on this, well past 8 hours. And I would say you get pretty moderate projection for at least about the first hour and a half. So at least about an arm's length or so. So again, man, definitely check out Lattafa's Teriaq Intense. All right, next one on the list. This is a fragrance that, I mean, I've only mentioned on this channel probably just a few times now. And it's one of this house's older fragrances, but this is still a very like super underrated, really good, really good scent, man. This one is from Alexandria Fragrances, and it's Hafez 1984 Intense. So you've got the original Hafez 1984. That one is kind of, it's like very similar to something like Parfums de Marly's Carlisle. And then you have this, the 1984 Intense. It definitely, it takes, I would say that sort of, you know, it takes the same sort of DNA for the most part, but it adds some other aspects to it to make it, I would say, totally different. So this starts off very kind of like boozy and spicy, very boozy, spicy, and like slightly sort of like tobacco smelling. I would say kind of like a ground sort of tobacco leaf smell. And then as this fragrance starts to kind of dry down, you start to get some other aspects, which are, you know, you start to get some oud in this fragrance, I think there's also like a coffee note that you get in this fragrance as well. And I mean, the coffee in this is not like, it's very unique. I would say it doesn't really smell like most other sort of coffee notes that I've smelled in most other coffee scents. The way that they've blended it into this scent, it's not like one of the main players. It just kind of adds to everything else that's sort of going on. And I think this really makes for like a really nice masculine, wintertime sort of tobacco style type of scent. Like I said, it's very boozy, very tobacco heavy. And then you do get that mixture of things like oud and the coffee. And I mean, the oud in this is not like skanky or anything like that. Like, it's very, very clean and smooth. This is just overall, it's one of Alexandria's better, original creations that I think it really doesn't get too much love, or not enough anyway. And it's definitely, I would say, it's going to be like a grown man type of scent. So this is definitely like 30 to 35 and up, I think. And it won't necessarily be like the most compliment getting scent either. Because I mean, I've had other women smell this scent, as well as like the original 1984. And I mean, most of the women that I've had smell, either one of these scents, they haven't really been a fan of. So, I think if you're wearing this is going to be a scent more so for you. But it's a very, very, very high quality, very amazing scent. Performance on it is also very good as well. So longevity wise on this is going to be well past 12 hours. And projection is actually going to be very good as well. So, well past arm's length for like the first 3 hours or so. This is a fragrance that, you really don't need to spray too much of. I would say probably with this, you really only need about 3 to 4 sprays maximum, and that's it. And I mean, this is only a 30 ml. I've had this fragrance for, I don't know, at this point, probably well over 7 years. And I mean, that's how much I've used of it. Now, mind you, I don't wear this fragrance a lot. But I mean, I've worn this fragrance several times. And like I said, for me, I only need maybe about 3 to 4 sprays, and I'm good, in terms of, wearing this fragrance. So again, man, definitely check out Hafez 1984 Intense from Alexandria Fragrances. All right, next one on the list. This is another like tobacco based scent. This time it's going to be from Fragrance World. This one is Tabac N Coke. So Tabac N Coke, I could say this in some ways, and I mean, these two don't smell like the same really at all, but I would say this in some ways kind of like reminds me or gives me like similar vibes as something like Hafez 1984 Intense from Alexandria. But basically what you get with this is, like, if you were to take, like a can of cola and, let it kind of sit out and go flat, that's basically what you get like in the opening of this fragrance. Now, I do definitely wish that, they would have made the Coke in this a lot more like fizzier and brighter. I think that would have made this fragrance, especially the opening, way better. Like, I was expecting like the type of opening that you get from something like Roja's Creation E. That's more so what I was expecting, but this still is pretty good. Like I said, you kind of get like that flat Coke sort of opening in this, mixed with like a really nice tobacco, very smooth. I would say it's kind of like a to me, it kind of smells like a tobacco sort of like paste or something is what I kind of get from this fragrance. That's the type of vibe that I'm getting from this. So like, like a flat Coca-Cola mixed with like a tobacco sort of paste, mixed with like a slightly kind of, vanillic undertone. The vanilla is there, but it's not like super prominent, not at least until you start to get, to like the far dry down. And then I think that's when the vanilla definitely starts to come out a little bit more. But, overall, this is a very, very nice, I would say fall, winter, and spring style scent for sure. It's not like super cloying, but this does still have very, very good strength. So I would say this is definitely not something that you would want to wear like in the summertime. I think regardless of where you live, unless maybe it was like a really, really cool summer night, then, maybe. But I mean, definitely for me, this is a no-go in the summertime out here. Yeah, man. I mean, especially for the price that you pay for this, I think this is like under $40. Especially if you get it from like Frag Flex or Fragrance Buy. I think it's under $40 for this 100 ml. It's a very solid tobacco scent. And I mean, the thing that I like about this is this is kind of what I was hoping or expected something like Royal Blend Bourbon to smell like. It's not too spicy. It's not too sweet. It's not too cloying. I think everything is like super smooth and balanced in this fragrance. Like I said, the only gripe that I have about this one is just the opening. I wish they would have went with more of like a fizzy, sort of like you just open a can of Coca-Cola type of smell. Like I wish they would have went with that. But outside of that, I mean, I think this is a very, very nice original creation. Again, performance wise, this definitely lasts on my skin well past 10 hours and really good projection, at least over arm's length, I would say for like the first 2.5 hours. So again, check out Tabac N Coke from Fragrance World. All right, so the next one on the list, this is a sample that I got from one of my viewers. So definitely shout out to Sean. I appreciate you for sending me this huge 10 ml sample of this fragrance, which by the way, this fragrance, even though it's by like a inspiration house, this fragrance is actually pretty expensive, definitely like niche style prices. This is from actually Barara, and this is Barara's Ramesses II, I believe is what it is. This is a very like high-end niche style quality vanilla scent is what I would say is what you get with this. I get like a very high quality vanilla. I get sort of like a booziness from this as well. I want to say it has like a slight sort of like rum feel to it. Definitely kind of spicy. You do sort of get like a woody feel from it as well. I do believe that there is like some oud in this fragrance. Definitely not like a skanky oud or anything like that. It's a very mass appealing, Western style oud, I would say is what you get. And again, it's not very prominent really at all. I think really it's mainly there just to kind of add like a base and some character to this fragrance. And I mean, the lowest that I've seen this fragrance for was like $108 on eBay. But typically, anywhere else, I think normally this fragrance goes for like anywhere from, I think, $200 to about $250. And again, this is a Barara fragrance. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, probably including myself, are not necessarily going to be willing to pay that much for a Barara fragrance. But this does, I would say, have the quality to kind of back that price up. Now, do I intend to pay that much for it? No. I'll definitely be waiting to, kind of get my hands on it if it comes to like a discounter at a lower price. I think it is actually at discounters right now, but even the discounters for the most part are still kind of selling it like for $200 or more. So, again, it is definitely on the higher end, especially from like a clone house for sure. But The quality on this is still very good. I think, you know, if you like very kind of unisex vanilla, like vanillic, slightly boozy, woody types of scents, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. Very, like I said, unisex. I don't think that this leans like masculine or feminine in any sort of way. Super high quality. And it lasts a pretty long time on me as well. Like this definitely lingered on my skin well past 8 hours. And the projection, I think is just right. Like it's enough projection where other people are going to smell you, and you're going to smell it throughout the day. This was not something that I like went nose blind to or anything like that. But it wasn't anything that like became super cloying to me either. So this is not going to be like, it's not going to be something like vanilla toffee, you know, where it's just like super beast mode. This definitely has enough strength, like I said, for it to be, you know, noticeable by others, but not like a irritant, you know, to others. And it definitely, like I said, it's stuck on my skin, you know, quite a long time as well. So again, man, I would say definitely if you can find this for a reasonable price, then I would definitely look into this one for sure. You know, if you're looking for just a very kind of unisex, high quality vanilla style scent, you know, I think if this were done by another fragrance house, like if Initio did this or something like that, then, you know, a lot of people would probably be giving this, you know, more praise, but I think it's not really that well known because it's, you know, done by Barara. But this is still a very, very solid scent, man. So again, check out Ramesses II from Barara. All right, and then the last one on the list, this one is actually from Sensual Obsessions. I've had this fragrance for quite a long time as well. And this one is Amber and Oud. So when I have the links in the description, I'll have to make sure that I have the current name of this fragrance, because I know a lot of those Sensual Obsessions fragrances that I've had for years now, like the names on them have changed. So I'll have everything in the description here. But basically what you get with this fragrance is you get like a very sort of fizzy amber. I would say very, very similar to something like Dior's Ambre Nuit. So the way that the amber comes across in this is it's very fizzy and airy, just like Ambre Nuit. All right. I would say really the biggest difference though between something like Ambre Nuit and, you know, Amber and Oud is instead of you kind of getting like, you know, a rosy sort of like fizzy amber, like what you get with Ambre Nuit, with this, you're getting, and even though the name says oud, I feel like the woody note that's being used in this, it doesn't really smell like oud to me. It more so kind of smells like more of like a dusty sort of sandalwood is what I would say is what you get with this. Yeah, it doesn't to me smell like oud necessarily, you know, despite the name. But this is a very, very underrated scent from Sensual Obsessions. Very underrated, man. I would say, in my opinion, it definitely kind of leans masculine. That's just, you know, in my opinion. And like I said, you do get like a very sort of fizzy amber, like what you get with Ambre Nuit. Obviously, the quality is not going to be anywhere near as good as what you get with something like Dior's Ambre Nuit. So this is going to start off, I would say, a lot more rougher, you know, for probably like the first 15, 20 seconds or so. And then as it starts to dry down, you know, you start to get a much more kind of smoother, fizzier amber, mixed with, like I said, just a very kind of like dusty style wood. And again, to me, it doesn't really smell like oud. It smells more kind of like a dusty sort of sandalwood to me. But just the way that it's done in this fragrance, I think is very, very good. So you will need to like woody style scents for sure. I think if you don't like woody scents, then, you know, you probably won't like this one. But, you know, in terms of like an original scent, I think this was like one of Central Obsession's best original scents that I've smelled, you know, because it is very sort of unique for sure. Performance on it is also very good as well. So you're going to easily get well past 10 hours of longevity with this. And the projection on it is also very good. At least probably about 5 to 6 feet for like the first 2 hours or so. So like I said, I'll have this linked in the description, as well as all the other fragrances. If this is named something different, then I'll just kind of have like amber and oud, you know, next to it to let you know what it actually is. But this is definitely a super underrated fragrance from Central Obsessions. Again, check out Central Obsessions, amber and oud. All right, and that's the list, man. That is my list of my top 10 best sort of original fragrances from cologne houses that I have currently in my collection. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all thought about the list. Also, have you all smelled any or all of these fragrances? If so, what do you all think about them? And also, I'll have links in the description to where you can pick all of these up. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see y'all in the next video.